Good morning. I realize there's a certain irony in VA being a keynote for customer service, but we hope to change that. A little bit about my background first. I've been 7 months in the government and still am learning through a fire hose, as they say. I was 40 years in the private sector in the restaurant business, of which 20 years were overseas. I was in Europe for 15 years. I was in Asia for 5 years. Most recently, I was the CEO of the largest Asian restaurant business in Asia, based in Manila. We had 5 restaurant companies in the Philippines, 2 in Vietnam, and 4 in China. So I was in Vietnam and China every month, and got back for probably what was my second or third retirement. And I saw the secretary on 60 Minutes, and I'm an Army brat, grew up on Army bases, and the mission inspired me. I wanted to be a part of this, and I'm terribly proud and excited today to be Chief Veterans Experience Officer for VA. And my father, so my grandfather, father, and brother all went to West Point. I was a black sheep who went to Duke, but he's decided now that I am okay since I am serving the country. So what I'd like to share with you is kind of what's been a journey for 7 months for myself personally, as well as for our team. And we've gotten started on some great initiatives. Our goal is actually higher than improving our customer experience. It's to be one of the leading agencies in the federal government. And Secretary McDonald, when he was confirmed in his first speech, announced that he was going to set up a Chief Customer Experience Officer. The only change was in talking to our customers, it got changed to Chief Veterans Experience Officer. And we've been on a journey to understand what is currently being done, what needs to be done, how are the measurements. And I can tell you, arriving on the 5th of January, there was no roadmap, there was no app. I didn't know the destination, I didn't know the journey. So I was trying to figure everything out from scratch in terms of how do you set up a customer experience organization within the government. So our mission at VA, and if you think about what's the purpose of the Veterans Experience Office, it's to help the agency achieve its mission, which is inscribed on the front of our building, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. I've been using recently, though, a mission statement to build trusted, lifelong relationships with veterans and their families. And when I speak to employees in VA, I ask them, which of those words, are a surprise to you? And for some of them, it's the idea that there's a relationship, or that's the idea that there's a lifelong relationship. The new word is trusted, because we are already in a relationship. And I think this is true of all federal agencies. You're in a relationship with your customers, and you're in a lifelong relationship with your customers. The question is it a trusted relationship? So I think every interaction needs to be viewed as part of a longer-term relationship. Therefore, the interactions need to be relational and not transactional. So this is too small for you to see in the back, but what are the goals? I mean, what is it we're trying to achieve in the Veterans Experience Office? And it took us quite a while to try to distill these out of what seems initially to be kind of an overwhelming task. But the power of language, the power of simplicity, the power of clarity, when you have an agency of over 300,000 employees, how do you communicate? How do you get them to understand? How do you communicate with clarity, but also from the heart, with emotion? So that clarity can allow a common understanding with our employees. What I'd like to share with you this morning, I sat down when I was trying to think about what to share with you this morning, was really six lessons learned, if I could, from my 7 months in working with the team. And as I said before, we've hit some dead ends. We've started and stopped some places, and it's been interesting. The first goal, obviously, anywhere is to understand the what before you can start determining the how. But in many cases, there's a tendency to throw in the how right away. Let's just do this initiative. This will bring some change, as opposed to adequately defining what it is we're trying to accomplish. And it's important for our employees that they understand the what and that they participate in the how. So the 6 lessons I'd like to talk about, how do you define customer experience? I mean, what exactly is customer experience? Building the national capabilities that you'll need to support customer experience. Make sure everybody understands what the desired outcomes are. The implementation of measurements. Engaging and leveraging employee experience. This is something I've heard in some of the earlier speakers, and it's obviously crucial. And then how do you build enterprise-level capabilities? So the first one is, how do you define customer experience? And as I said before, our goal is to keep things simple. My first thought when I came in, this actually took me about 6 weeks to 8 weeks to understand that not everybody, when I said customer experience, knew what I was talking about. And in talking with leaders in Washington as well as in the field, there was kind of this knee-jerk reaction of customer experience. Well, that's just making them smile, or that's Disney. Or in the worst case, we really don't have time for that. We're already overloaded and we're already too busy. So keeping things simple, our goal is make it predictable, consistent, and easy. Predictable means transparency, telling the veteran what's going to happen versus the black box that they view the VA today. Setting expectations and then meeting them or exceeding them. So the predictability is one. When veterans start to apply for a benefit, they often have no idea what the process is going to mean, what it's going to take, how many months it's going to take. So the predictability, transparency is important. Consistent, meaning defined standards, systems, replicable. It's experience as a planned event versus something that just happens because somebody went out of their way and really made a huge effort. How do you get predictable experiences? Consistency. This is not one that we have done well so far. Sometimes we achieve the 95, but sometimes we hit a 65. I'd be happier with an 85 all the time that we can then move up and improve on. The last one is also the one I think that we struggle on, is make it easy to be a customer. Working, as you've heard here many times this morning, I'm sure, working from the customer and working backward and designing things from a customer experience. And there's so many ways that we're seeing, and I'll share some as we're moving forward, where we have to do a much better job of making it easier to be a customer of VA. So the question is, what capabilities do you need to build from a customer service standpoint? If you have saying you're going to build an office here, what are the skills that you're going to need to be able to have a great customer service? And the first one is actually the one that is the most important and the one that did not exist in VA, which is the insight and design piece. And for me, the insight and design is human-centered design, customer and employee insights, customer journey mapping, identifying the key touch points with the customers. And customer insight, I mean, these are very small things. I mean, just in the last 3 days, I've had emails talking about changing the music that I hear when I'm on hold, hospital gowns that actually snap, noise in the hallways. So customer insight and employee insight, this group would actually do both for employee and customer insight. Outreach and advocacy, bringing the agency closer to the customer. Measuring performance, we talked about customer service capability. The enterprise IT platform, what are the platforms we need just in this most recent presentation so that you, from an omni-channel, you have that information no matter how the customer is trying to reach you. And then the other one, the last one to me that's probably going to have the biggest impact on VA in the long term is we're setting up a field organization. VA has established 5 districts, and we're going to have 25 people in each of those 5 districts with the customer, with the facility directors. They'll be living, these are not offices where 25 people are in the same office. We separated the offices from the director from their deputy. So in the Northeast, for example, the director will be in New York, the deputy will be in DC. In the Southeast, it'll be Atlanta and Tampa. And then the other people will be in the different states where they're going to be addressing the issues of customer service. So we have a geographical focus. In this geography, you're responsible for customer service. And I think this is going to be having the biggest impact because you'll be looking at things, is this something that's local to this facility, or is this something systemic that we need to change and create a different process for? So those are the capabilities that we've set up. Well, are in the process of setting up. Define intended outcomes. From somebody who spent 40 years in the private sector, what you have in most organizations, you have inputs of human and financial capital, and through processes and systems, you create outputs of goods and services. And then there's an outcome of sales, profit, market share, and you see your outcome on a daily basis. And once you see your outcome, you can go back and make adjustments to your inputs or your outputs and change what you're doing. It's instantaneous in terms of what you're doing and making the adjustments. And it allows you to run the business with great precision. In government, from what I found, you have the same thing. You have inputs of human and financial capital, you have processes and systems, and you have outputs of goods and services. What's less clear is what the outcomes are, and are you hitting the correct outcome? And sometimes I have had the feeling in these last 7 months that if you're just producing goods and services, good things will happen. And that's not really the case. So we don't really know if our input and outputs are aligned for an outcome. So in VA, what we're working on is trying for every single line of business that we have is to define an outcome using metrics, which again, you've heard this morning, and also using CX and EX measurements. So we're starting this with this budget process, and the goal will be to, within the metrics, effectiveness measurements as defined by our customers, and efficiency metrics as expected by our taxpayers. So in every single line of business, we'll be looking for effectiveness and efficiency, as well as the customer experience and the employee experience. And this will make our leaders more accountable in terms of, why are you doing this? Is this the outcome that we're trying to achieve? Whoops. So the next one that I have is setting the customer measurements. And there's far more experts in the room in here at CX measurement than myself. But it didn't take me a long time. Actually, my first couple of weeks, I realized that there were some issues in terms of our customer service measurements. First of all, it wasn't for lack of measurements. It was kind of like measurements are us. I've never seen so many measurements. So my first thought when I came in, I guess I was rather naively, if you set the correct measurement, then behavior will be organized and people will work to achieve this measurement. I've since been disabused of that idea. The problem that we've had with our customer measurements, first of all, is most of the information is coming from surveys. So the data is already 6 months old, which makes it less actionable. The second thing is that we've been asking questions that we think must be important to our veterans. But we haven't asked our veterans what's important to them. And this is something that I had a great example when I was in Manila. I was working as the CEO, and I was kind of intrigued because in the org chart there was a group there, a QA group, which is something the largest that I'd ever seen. And they were doing extraordinary inspections of each one of the restaurants. There would be 2 or 3 people. There would be 60 pages. I mean, it seemed like a lot that we were doing in terms of inspections. So I asked somebody to compare how the restaurants ranked in their inspections to their outcome, their sales growth, their profitability. There was absolutely no connection. What we were measuring and the outcome, there was absolutely no connection at all. So then we did, some work on customer insight. And of the 10 things that were most important to our customers, we were measuring items 5 through 10. We weren't measuring the first 4 items, which all dealt with people. Was I respected? Was I greeted? Was there a relationship with that person? It wasn't product. It wasn't the temperature of the food, the cleanliness of the floors. It was people that were the top 4. We weren't measuring those top 4. The other thing we realized of those top 10 is that some you get credit for doing, others you lose credit when you're not doing them. So in terms of what's important to the customer, it has to be understood, is it important because this is kind of a greens fee to be there. I mean, when you go into a restaurant, you don't go, this is a really clean floor. But every single restaurant company, I can assure you, has clean floors as one of the things they're checking off. You don't get credit for a clean floor. You only get credit if it's, you only lose credit if it's not. And the same thing's true on the other items that we're looking at. So the other thing that we found in the CX measurements in VA is that we had all these measurements that nothing really happened. After we had the measurements, that there wasn't anything that was connected then to action. And so on the cycle of measure, analyze, act, follow-up, clearly act needs to be something that happens. Actually, analyze would be helpful as well, because sometimes you get so much data, you're not quite sure what it means or what to do with it. And then I guess the last thing that we found in terms of customer experience measurements was they were not geared toward the level of the organization where they could be useful. It's a different measurement for the front line than it is for the leaders at the department. So the timeliness of the measure and the type of the measure is different depending on where you are in the organization. So this is the question that we ask: what drives action at each level? So data ranges from events at the front line through patterns to trends at the department level. So the facility directors need real-time data to manage their facilities, and department leaders need the trend data showing progress over a period of time. So at VA, we're introducing an evaluation tool that we got from DoD, which is going to allow us to measure employees and customers' experience daily, and to be able to come up with monthly and quarterly reports. And as we've talked about last time, if one of the things we're going to look at in terms of a report is very simply green, yellow, red. And it can be done in a facility within the different departments of the facility. And so if the employees are tracking red, you can guess what the customers are going to be tracking on that report. But this is going to give us much better operational data than what we've had so far. So the goal for measurement is obviously, continuous improvement, figuring out what it is that drives action. I can't say enough about this one. We've actually have a graphic now we put out a plan last week, and one of the things we have is a yin-yang showing CX and EX, veterans experience and employee experience. They aren't two sides of the same coin, they're the same side of the coin. They are inextricably linked. I mean, you can't do service without employees' engagement, capabilities, and energy. So world-class organizations, we've benchmarked a lot of organizations. We've been to USAA, we've been to Disney, we've been to Starbucks, Marriott, Ritz-Carlton, Cleveland Clinic, Wegmans. And the goal is, how do you systematize an approach? What is it what's in the employee's DNA? What happens that they can give that level of service and that level of energy? And so they're serving thousands of people, thousands of different locations every day. And in those organizations, they're only as good as the last visit. Because you can get a lot of visits going and screw one up, and then you've lost that customer. So the energy of the employees, their culture is values-based versus rules-based. Best service organizations are decentralized, driving accountability as close as possible to the field. So we're really focusing on the employee experience in VA. I think we have the most outstanding employees, the most mission-driven, passionate employees in government. I don't think we've done a good job of helping them and supporting them to fulfill their mission. And that's something that we have to do. And I'd also love to see our employees get the courage of common sense sometimes when, how do you take care of that veteran versus what a rule says. So while I've talked about kind of the field organization and the individual customer experience, what we've also have are some enterprise level initiatives. And this was kind of a surprise to me when I came in, because I wasn't quite sure if Veterans Experience was a staff office or a line office. My first thought it was going to be a staff office, and I was going to be, helping the administrations in terms of the execution. As it turns out, though, we've got Veterans Health Administration, Veterans Benefits, National Cemetery. We're the only office that sees across all of the administrations. So the first thing that was given to us was the customer data integration. We don't know who our customers are. We have no clue right now our customers from a standpoint of their identity, their contact information, their military service, demographics, and how they've used VA. We have over 200 databases that don't communicate with each other. And so the first goal is to have an authoritative view of our customers and how they use VA. What's happened today, if you're a veteran and you call up VBA and you apply for a claim and you give all your information, if you call up tomorrow and you want to look at a GI Bill, they have no clue who you are. You're starting all over again with all your information. So again, this is absolutely key to everything that we do, is to have this customer data integration completed. And our goal is to have that by the end of this year, this time next year, where we're actually able to operate understanding who all of our customers are. This has been a goal for the agency for quite some time, at least since 2010. The second thing that we were given is the unified digital experience. We have over 1,000 websites in VA. So if you're a veteran, I mean, if you just go onto Google, it's just about impossible to figure out how you would go about getting something done. So the goal is to set up the websites we were calling it a harbor. So you have a front portal, which currently is vets.gov, and we'll start bringing in e-benefits, bringing in our other websites. But from the user standpoint, it's seamless. From the user standpoint, they'll be able to navigate as if it's a single website with a single secure sign-on. They can get, the goal will be a year from now, they can get their benefits, check on their benefits, check on their claim, add a dependent, change an address, everything that they'd be able to do online. We've also been analyzing our existing websites. And again, listening to some of the people talk, I think we might have outdone you, especially on the Adobe one. We do have one website where it takes 17 clicks, 17 pages to reach a form that you download, fill out by hand, and mail. So I think that's our record. So we're clearly, from looking at the experience, we're doing a lot of analysis of the existing websites. What are they looking for? What are they asking? Common to that, for the call centers, we have over 200 call centers, over 950 1-800 numbers. So again, you go to the same thing. How are you supposed to reach, how do you go about reaching VA? How do you make it easier for them to be customers of VA? So we're looking at setting up, it'll probably end up being, we're using USAA as one of our examples. We're also looking at New York 311, Philly 311, in terms of examples. So there may be a VA 311 as a national number. There may be then regional and local. I mean, we're not going to have one 1-800 number, because if a veteran's been calling a certain number for their pharmacy for the last 15 years, we don't want them to have to, learn a different number. But that's a journey that we're going on that's going to take much longer. The single website is actually easy, because we have some incredible folks from USDS and digital services able to figure those things out. The call centers are going to be a little bit more difficult, because there's VBA call centers, VHA call centers. When we eventually figure out what the enterprise level should look like, as opposed to everybody having their own, that'll be an interesting period, probably toward the beginning of next year. So that's the in a sense what we are looking at in our kind of 6 overall learnings. Our goal is to rebuild our veterans' trust in VA, one veteran at a time. There is no silver bullet. It's not going to happen overnight, but we think we're making progress and we're going in the right direction. And as I said, the goal for our employees who are so passionate about our mission is to help them to accomplish that mission. So thanks very much. I have time for some questions if there's any questions. And if you don't want to come to the mic, just raise your hand and shout, because I can probably hear you.
I have a quick question. My name is Jesse Moore with the Minority Business Development Agency under the Department of Commerce, but I also have a nonprofit where I help homeless veterans. So I was wondering if you guys are looking into doing focus groups with like local, state, or nonprofits just to find out what is actually going on in the community in terms of veterans and how to help benefit them better.
Okay, great question. One of the initiatives I didn't mention is we're setting up, one of our goals is to have 100 MyVA communities across the country by this time next year. And we've already started setting up, we have about 6 that are underway. So if you think about VA does only part of the work for veterans. There's an awful lot of other organizations that are doing great work for our veterans. But it's difficult to understand how to coordinate those. So we're setting up community organizations, community groups that will consolidate everything that is being done for veterans in that community. So a board, and then having town halls. And the local VA facility directors will support that. They'll, in a sense, answer to the board. So if there's questions that come up, then let's handle them locally, as opposed to the 2,000-mile screwdriver coming out of Washington trying to fix a problem. So it's the goal is to have those communities creating the kind of a one-stop shopping. It's a more effective market in terms of needs and what providers are doing. So I think that'll be answered at the community level. There's actually one being set up in DC now. We have one MyVA Connecticut, New Orleans, San Diego, and the goal will be to coordinate all the activities that are being done for veterans within that community.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about the yin and the yang of the citizen or the veteran experience as well as the employee experience. What are some of the programs that you're putting in place to manage the employee experience, making sure that they are truly mission-driven and engaged?
Okay. We are actually working on that right now in terms of how do you do that. One of the issues that we have in VHA, which is the health administration, is we have 1,000 locations right now. We have 1,000 different ways of how customer service is positioned. We have 1,000 different ways of onboarding. We have 1,000 different ways of training. So in working with David Shulkin, the incoming Undersecretary for Health, one of the things we're looking at is what should be standard, what should be the national standards or minimum standards, and then what should be changed or done locally. So if you think about customer service, I mean, one of the things that I hear is we just need to put a training program in place. I think what we are up to now is about 35 different elements, which starts with an assessment of the employee. Is there a bias toward empathy and compassion? Would this be a good customer service person, good customer service employee? The initial interview, the onboarding, what part of it is in terms of the culture, the history, the values of the company, something we see very strong in the great service organizations. A standard, if it's a 5-day, training program, what part of that is customer service? Currently, all we are using in VA are off-the-shelf customer service programs. Well, our veterans are different. We're not selling coffee to our veterans. There's a pride, there's a military understanding. What you call, you don't call a Marine a soldier. So there's more that we need to be doing for our employees to be able to better serve our veterans. So the goal right now is to come up with the whole gamut from bringing a person on board, operating a shift, aligning the employee performance with the veterans' expectations. We're changing that now in VBA, where how employees were being rated, points that they got were actually counter to what would be for the benefit of a veteran. So how do you align the interests of the employees and the veterans? So looking at the employee performance measurements too is one of the things we're looking at. So how do you align all of those things across that so that there's a synergy between the employee and the veteran? Yeah.
A question about how the office that you're in will evolve over the next few years. You came on less than a year ago, right? And I would guess that the goal is going to be to continue to staff it and make sure that the early results you guys get are continue. Can you talk about how that's going to go forward?
So what the Secretary put in place a year ago was a group which was a MyVA task force. And the MyVA task force actually had 5 areas it was looking into: veterans experience, employee experience, support services, performance improvement, and strategic partnerships. The veterans experience is actually going to be there after the MyVA task force eventually winds down, and it'll be a standing office in VA with a small group in Washington. I mean, I think we're probably looking at 100 people max, and then the people that I talked about in the field. And as I said, it's the field organization I think is going to drive much more what's happening with the veterans and the facility directors than what we're doing in DC. The idea is that the design occurs in DC, the execution is in the field. And one of the things I do want to avoid, if we have 5 districts, I'd like to, I don't want too much trial and error in the districts, so that all of a sudden we have 5 different districts in terms of how we're approaching our veterans and creating our own silos.
My name is Chuck Popelka, Vietnam veteran, 5 decades of experience with the VA, as a student, as a homeowner, and then compensation. Recently, I had to put in new paperwork for how things change as veterans get older. I put it in beginning of June, and went to the VA hospital and talked to a physician's assistant about 3 weeks ago. Got a letter on Monday. Okay, my immediate impression is, oh, the VA needs more information. That kind of dodge that always happens. Turns out it was their decision. And I was just so surprised on how fast that came, and through the whole process, how the people, the physician's assistant, the compensation coordinator, were just really wonderful, professional, and it was just a wonderful experience. So I wanted to give you that, and I could say that trusted relationship is started.
I can't thank you enough. I mean, in the times that I spend in the field, and that's really where I gain my energy, we have extraordinary employees who are doing Herculean efforts every day, and I just said we just need to support them better. Thank you very much.